Okay, I rethreaded my machine and that's as far as I went. I didn't go any farther. So this is where I'm at. I've got from here to here and I've got this left to go. But you can see the dilemma you're going to have when you make these things, because I'm going to have to get this to this piece and sew it evenly without any buckles in it. So it's not easy to do, but if you want these shoes, this is how you're going to do it. So I'm going to lay that down and press them together, and I'm still sewing on this side, so I'm going to move this out of the way and I'm going to start my stitching where I left off. Let's see how I did. Not bad. Okay, so there was my stitching. And this is where you're going to have the trouble, of course, is right here in the front, just like I showed you on those yellow boots where that's going to bunch up right there. But that is going to be boot number 2. And I did a really nice job of matching the two designs on the front using that protector sheets, because I was able to match exactly the same design. Okay, so you don't have to do anything. I did do a top seam here, but when I did that, I don't know if I did or not. Okay, no, I didn't. So I went ahead and I did my top stitching on here without having my lining attached. So we're going to do that next. So how did I do that? I sewed on the top of the boot, and I did it like, oh gosh, not even a 1/16 of an inch. And I'm sewing on the snakeskin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of, instead of changing to my walking foot, I'm just going to use the Scotch tape, so I don't have to change my pressure foot out. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to push my seam to the top of the boot, and I'm going to sew all the way across about 1/16 of an inch from the edge, so I can match this line of sewing right here. Okay, I'm not going to do that because I can't see where I'm sewing. So I'm going to try it without the tape and see if I can sew on it. I don't remember using my walking foot. Yeah, I must have. Okay, well, that didn't work. Let's I can't see through that Scotch tape to do top stitching, so I'm not going to do it that way. Okay, so off with the regular pressure foot and on with the walking foot. Okay. Alright, now I'm ready. So I'm going to do that top stitching again, 1/16 of an inch from the edge. As I'm sewing, I'm pulling my fabric apart so there is no overlap. Okay, and I'm at that center point. So I've got my fabric underneath my sewing. Okay. Okay, so I did the top stitching, and that's what it looks like underneath without all of these threads hanging. Okay, so that is boot number 2 before you put the, where did that come from? Before you put the lining in. Okay, so the next step is to add the lining. So when we sew the lining together, we're going to put right sides to right sides, because when we turn it inside out, we don't want to see the sewing on this side and we don't want to see the sewing on this side. So when I sew, I'm sewing right sides together. I'm also, I gave myself that extra 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to line it up to the top, and then that will give me that extra 1/4 of an inch on the bottom. As I sew this, I'm going to come to a point here and then turn, because I'm going to have to clip this. Because this vinyl is so thick, the only way I'm going to be able to make that nice point on the edge is if there's no, those two fabrics will come together and meet, which means I'm going to have to clip across here so that when they come together they'll meet in the middle. So let me go ahead and line this up, right sides together, and start sewing. So it doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to go ahead and just start on this side. And same thing, you don't want to put any pins where. In fact, I'm not even going to use a pin. So I'm just going to sew it without pinning it. So I'm just going to line this up, and I'm going to leave that extra because I can always cut that off if I don't need that much. So let me go ahead and start that. I'm going to start with I'm going to keep my walking foot on, but you can go to your regular pressure foot if you prefer it. Okay, I'll go ahead and go back to my regular pressure foot because this one's not a 1/4 of an inch seam. And there's not going to be any need for walking foot after this. Okay, so there's that. Alright, so now I'm ready to sew. I got my regular pressure put back on. I'm on my regular 1/4 of an inch seam. I'm going to just back up. Okay, I'm going to stop when I get to 1/4 of an inch up here, but I'm going to back it up. I'm going to back stitch just for some extra security. I'm going to turn it. Right sides, right sides. I'm going to do some stitching here. Same thing, I'm going to back it up. Just for some extra security, and then I'm going to sew. Backspace it up. Backstitch, I always say backspace. Okay, turn it. Go about 3 or 4 stitches, back it up. Give you that extra reinforcement, and then just go straight down. Okay, so now we've got our lining sewn to our front. We're going to make our clips, and I'm going to have to get the glue out because I'm going to glue my interfacing to the back of the vinyl around the top up here. You can't tell from looking at the video, but I glued all the way around the top instead of top stitching to keep this in shape. I guess you can if you want top stitch this, but I chose not to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my clips. And I'm going to go all the way in there so that when I turn this inside out, this is going to fold here to here. So I'm actually, instead of just going straight across, I'm actually going in. I don't know what you would call that, but I'm giving myself more than just a straight across, so that when this folds and this folds, I'll get a nice smooth point at the top of that piece of edge of the boot. Okay. I also want this to lay flat too, so I'm going to clip. I'm going to give little clips in here so that don't cut your stitching, but just give yourself little clips so it will lay flat. I went all the way across. I don't think you really need to, but since I did it on the other one, I'll do it on this one too, so they're a pair. I didn't clip the edges. Okay, I'm going to have to go get my glue, and then when I get my glue, I'll show you how I actually turned this inside out and glued it. And we're almost, we're in the home stretch. Okay, I'll be right back. Gotta get my glue. Okay, I got my glue out. This is the ultimate. I got this trick from Joanne's Minis. She said that put it on and wait a few minutes, and then put your glue pieces together, and it'll stick like contact cement. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some glue on my cardboard here. towel. And I'm going to take some of this glue and I'm going to go all the way along the top here. I'm just going to be gluing the tops and the sides. Okay, so you just want to let that sit for a little bit. And I'm going to just put a little bit on this side. I'm not going to put very much. I just want enough to get it to stick together. Too much will be just as bad as not enough. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit for about a minute. What I did was I checked the soles on these shoes, and I wasn't so happy with them, so what I did was I recoated it, so I'm still waiting for this to dry again. I put too thick of a coat and I've got some ridges on the bottom of the bases, but in this I want to actually make another base or sand this down and start over. I'm just going to use the ones I have, and then they'll be fine. But okay, so in the meantime, I've got a knitting needle, and I've got my quill. I don't want to use this part because it's just too sharp. I don't want to punch through the vinyl or the fabric. I could use this side as a turn. If you've got one of those, somebody told me about it, one of those bone things, those turning bones or whatever, those are supposed to work real good too. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just flip my inside out. Okay, and I'm going to line up my seams. Okay, and I'm going to use my little handy tool here to push all my seams out. But I don't want to use too much force, so I puncture my fabric. That's one thing I do not want to do. So firm but careful. Okay, and that glue should be sticking pretty well. Okay, can you see? I hope you can see what I'm doing here. So I want to get that to point out there better. You know, you're probably not going to be perfect, but just try and get it as smooth as you can. Okay. And then I'm just going to go along here and finger it down. Same thing here. Okay. It has a tendency to go where you want it to go anyway, so it's not that difficult to do. It's just a matter of making sure that all your seams are out to the top. If you get a little glue through the outside, it doesn't matter because it dries clear. Okay, so that. And that. Okay. And that's what your one side looks like, and your outside. there you go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our Velcro on, and we're going to put our base on, and then we're going to put our soles, our bottom soles on. Okay, so I'm going to actually put a seam in here so they'll stay together. Okay, so I'm going to well, I guess I was wrong. I am going to need my walking foot again, so I'm going to go ahead and shut down and put my walking foot on so you don't have to wait for me to do that. And then I'll be right back.